And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Our NBA team previews, they're almost done. We're down to the U's right now. It is Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for joining me. Truly appreciate it. But this is nonetheless an intriguing team that we're going to be talking about, the Utah Jazz, because they might hold out a lot of futures, not only for their team, but if they decide to make some moves, they could hold the future for some others as well. But who better to talk about it than a good man? Indeed, you got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today for all the stuff that he's doing at Fansided, SLC Dunk, and more. Oh, I like the fact that he said he's a Mario Kart savant. And as someone who hosts a pop culture show that touches quite a bit on video games, that warms my heart indeed. It is Calvin Barrett. Calvin, all the way from Japan. I got to start with saying konnichiwa. Great to have you.
Thank you. Really appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. You are living in what I feel is one of the coolest spots on the planet. Hopefully, I would love to get the opportunity to go to that part of the world. So I'm trying to see if I can finagle my way to there at some point in time. But I know another team that is trying to finagle their way in a direction most others are not is the Utah Jazz. And Utah, they haven't really had the ladies' luck, so to speak, in recent years as far as what they were doing. I remember a time not too long ago, Calvin, about 2-ish, 3-ish seasons ago, I think it was in November or December, about 3 seasons ago, when they were like number one in the Western Conference. And things were kind of like, hey, they're playing a little bit above their head, but maybe they should try to ride this thing out. Well, they kind of wrote it out in a different direction than what we thought it was. But, you know, hey, we're here now with a chance to develop youth and see what happens, Calvin. Tell me your thoughts on this team as it heads into the season, about some of the players that you think might start to stand out, starting with, obviously, their high draft choice. I believe it's number 6 in Ace Bailey. Tell me your thoughts on Ace Bailey and what he may be able to do for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, Ace Bailey with the Jazz, like you said, this is about the third year in their rebuilding, tanking direction. I know that people don't like to use tanking very often. It's kind of a dirty word in basketball, but it's kind of it's kind of the first year that the team actually they totally bottomed out. They finished last year dead last in the NBA, top odds, or I guess a 3-way tie for the top odds to land the number 1 pick. Of course, they get the absolute worst case scenario because that's how things work out for the Jazz a lot of the time, and they end up with the 5th pick. And for most Jazz fans, and I assume for the front office as well, when you fall down to the 5th pick, generally you start to think, okay, well, maybe we have to find some diamond in the rough kind of guy. Maybe we have to find somebody that we're a little bit higher on, we think has the opportunity to pop, but might be a bit more of a risk than a top 3 player. But the Jazz felt that they got a top 3 player in Ace Bailey. I believe if they were 3rd or lower at any point, they're taking Ace Bailey, assuming Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper are already off the board. He's a player that is electric, can create his own shots, super athletic, flashes incredible defensive upside, which I feel like not enough people talk about. He's long, and he's got great intangibles on the defensive end, willing to hustle, play hard, rebounded like a monster in the summer league. And it was super refreshing to see a player who he was touted as a consensus top 3 pick before the whole pre-draft, not going to workouts, mess with his agent that he actually split with earlier today. But it was a whole mess, and the Jazz just couldn't be happier to land a player like Ace Bailey. It really feels like for the first time since kind of blowing up the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert core, it feels like this is the first time that the Jazz actually have a player that they've drafted that they feel like they can start moving forward and build around, and hopefully turns into a centerpiece, a star for the team.
You're right. As we recorded this, Omar Cooper, who was the controversial manager of Ace Bailey, and in many ways maybe tried to facilitate a pathway to Utah because the way that they kind of, I guess, acted during the course of the draft process. I remember distinctly how, like you said, Ace Bailey was once considered number 2 or number 3 in the draft with many experts, and either through interviews or just an indication he wanted to be in a certain position with the team, that it looked like a lot of these teams were kind of like, maybe we're not going to go ahead and go in that direction with Ace Bailey. But Utah certainly did. And the Angels, both father and son, are now committing to a future with Ace Bailey that they're hoping is going to be a foundational piece. And with that, is there any other young core pieces? We'll get to Lauri Markkanen here in a second, but are there any young core pieces that you think really can stick out long term once Utah gets it turned around?
Well, one that you should know pretty well, is he's constantly in Lakers trade rumors, is Walker Kessler.
Yep.
He's everybody seems to think, well, once the trade deadline comes rolling around, Walker Kessler seems to be the name that everyone kind of tosses out, because Utah kind of traditionally, and they tend to be sellers around this point because they're not trying to win very many games. They want to take teams that are wanting to win now. They want to say, okay, you can win now. You can take our best players, but we want your future. And it's going to cost you a lot to trade with Danny Ainge, with Utah's front office. But Walker Kessler is an incredible defender. I believe he had the most total blocks in the NBA last season, largely thanks to Wembanyama's medical situation.
Yes.
But I think second in blocks per game. Just a fantastic interior defender. I remember when the Jazz initially got Kessler, he was a traded pick, or I guess right after the draft, the Timberwolves traded him over for Rudy Gobert, and there were a lot of conversations saying, wow, for the price of Kessler and for at least some offensive upside, like, would you rather have Walker Kessler or Rudy Gobert right now on your team? And that was a real conversation. And like Walker Kessler, he's one of the few sure thing young guys. He's proved that he can play in the league. He's proved that he's got an NBA skill. But you go down the list of players on the Jazz, and it gets a little murkier. It gets a little less certain. Pretty much immediately from there, you have Markkanen, you have Kessler, and then it's kind of a lot of, we'll see. Maybe this is a guy that's a few years away, or a few years away from being a few years away. That's a lot of what the Jazz have right now, and they're happy to wait it out and wait until they can get the perfect player for their team.
When you go down the list of what's there as far as the depth chart, there's certain guys that I see I like. I mean, I watched Isaiah Collier at USC, liked a little bit of what I saw, but he could do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, but he can't do this, and he can't do that yet in his career. Oh, Bryce Sensabaugh, I really liked. Guy can fill it up. He could shoot it from range, but there are other big flaws in this game that may prevent him from really being able to stick in a high-end rotation spot on a good competitive team. And that just goes down the list. It just seems like there's all these flawed players. I mean, coming from someone who covers the Lakers with a lot, keyword lot, of flawed players, I can just see that already. But most of those guys are veterans. They've been in the league a while. They are who they are. But a lot of these guys on Utah are already young and flawed. And I know that we talk about your coach there really being someone that is supposed to, Will Hardy, supposed to be really being someone that is there to develop these kids. When does that start to really click in with some of these young guys, if that's the case?
I think that's the operative question with the Jazz right now. Will Hardy, and like I mentioned, this was the first year the Jazz actually got the worst, or I guess best, draft odds. It's because Will Hardy he's done either a good job or a bad job, depending on who you ask, at winning more games with a team that truthfully doesn't really belong in the conversation of as many wins as they got. They had the 9th overall pick the first year that they really bottomed out, and then the 10th overall pick the following year. So I think now they're finally on track, saying, okay, this is a slow burn. We're putting the team in the crock pot. We're letting it settle in there, and it's going to be cooking for a long time. We're happy to lose as many games as possible, but we want to see who on the team is actually going to pop and who's actually going to stand out. I think this year with Ace Bailey and even with Walter Clayton Jr., who's kind of an under the radar, kind of flew under the radar in the draft circles, looked amazing in summer league, and is one of those, you look at him and that's just an obvious, this guy knows how to play basketball. This guy's a great basketball player kind of guys.
He looks like a winner. He looks like he has a pedigree. Yeah. He gives me the same vibes that Suggs gave me coming out of college. Just that pedigree, that he knows what it takes to win. Now, Suggs hasn't fulfilled that promise just yet, but Walter Clayton Jr., like you said, I mean, he has the national championship to back it up, and just basically, like you said, he is a older player, but one that can fulfill something that Utah needs as a two-way player they so desperately need on that team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this year the Jazz really got the most out of what they could have with this draft class. And so I think this is the first year where you start to see, okay, the Jazz, I'm not going to say are going to start winning. They're not going to try to start fighting for a play-in spot. That's not the spot where they're at as a franchise, nor is it the spot that they want to be at. This is the year where they start they're really going to let their young guys play loose, play free. They're going to give Ace Bailey plenty of chances to make mistakes and learn in actual NBA minutes. Walter Clayton's going to get plenty of run. We've had lots of people who, after watching him and Isaiah Collier, who started most of the year for the Jazz at point guard last year, a lot of people are saying, well, why not give Clayton the starting reps? He seems to be a much more capable scorer, maybe not playmaker, but more of a dynamic option for the offense. And I think this is the year where guys like a Bryce Sensabaugh, guys like Keontae George, you see guys like this who have their flaws and give good reason to be suspect of their future NBA prospects. This is the year where you say, okay, you need to start contributing and actually improving some of your critical flaws to prove to us that once it comes winning time, we can rely on you and you're going to play a key part of our system, of our culture, of our franchise. And so Will Hardy, I think the Jazz are very happy with the job that he's done and feel that he's their man moving forward. He has a great connection and relationship with the players, and they seem to be, at least now, the rebuild seems to have direction. It seems to finally have at least one or two players that they can point at and say, great, we've found somebody to build around. We've found somebody who we can put our focus on. Let's move forward with this and see what we have.
Once again, I'm on with Calvin Barrett. Please go ahead and check out his great work today for not only fan-sided, part of the fan-sided experience, but also as well SLC Dunk, Salt Lake City, SB Nation, right there for you as well, covering the Utah Jazz. A player that I like, but it's still kind of one-sided. Kyle Filipowski maybe has shed the girlfriend/wife issues that I guess brought it. You could actually catch our draft coverage that night and talk a lot about why he fell in the draft, and us remarking that it was a lot based off of his significant other at that time. And we'll leave it at that. But I saw him this summer in Las Vegas here, and I was really impressed. Offensively, I think he's got a lot of tools. The thing is, can he play enough defense in order to stay out there on the floor when Utah starts winning, or if he moves on to somewhere else? Again, another player who I have questions for as far as being at a level that is good enough defensively to stay out on the floor and be a contributor on a competitive team. Your thoughts on Kyle Filipowski? Because I watched him drop 30 and 10. I watched him hit and shoot 3-pointers better than anyone in the summer league, this past summer league, at 7 feet tall. Rebounds double digits, but asking him to defend at the rim would seem like something he was not really quite interested in doing. Now, maybe it was just a summer league thing, but you can see that there's an effort on one end and maybe not so much on the other.
No, you're exactly right. Kyle Filipowski, Jazz fans love Filipowski because he was the one rookie from last season that people could look at, and much like Walt Clayton coming in this year, you could just see, okay, this guy knows how to play basketball. There's kind of been it's being remedied recently, but there's been a movement since Giannis Antetokounmpo was drafted that everybody wants to find some raw, some lengthy, some athletic specimen that doesn't really play basketball at an NBA level. But maybe if we can teach him and we can harness the things that he does well and figure it out, and maybe he can learn how to play basketball, and maybe he'll be amazing. Kyle Filipowski is one of those guys where you look at him and you watched him through his entire career at Duke, and you say, every time this guy steps out onto the floor, at least in college, he's the best player, if not one of the best players out there. And he just knows how to score. He plays hard, at least on offense. He's just one of those guys who, and it's translated really well to the NBA. He, like you said, he's dropped 30 points in an NBA game, and he can rebound the ball, but defense and rebounding, that's not really his calling card. I don't think long term he's a guy that you really want running with your starting unit, unless of course he can develop that and improve on that end. But he's got really good size. He's an incredible shooter, stretch forward. Just he brings so much to a basketball team that when you look back on the draft and the whole draft process and him sliding all the way to the second round, it just looks really silly in hindsight that everybody thinks his personal relationship, as weird as the circumstances were, for an NBA franchise who just wants to see a guy play basketball, who cares? Like the guys proved, I would argue more so than Collier and Cody Williams, the two other players that the Jazz drafted ahead of Filipowski. He's proved that he has NBA skills and NBA talents that translate near seamlessly. And maybe he won't ever be an all-star player. Maybe he won't ever be one of the best forwards in the league. But he's absolutely got NBA talent, and he knows how to contribute for his team when called upon.
I just hope for him he can find that effort. I think he is a little bit I think he rebounding for him is a means to an end. So if he does get extended minutes, you will see rebounding for him, but it's not like you said, like he's a great rebounder. It's just because at 7 feet, 250 or 240, whatever, he is, just by his sheer size and placement on the floor, will probably get rebounds. But then usually that placement on the floor means that he may not be playing the fiercest rim protection or defense in place of it. So I think he could probably average 18 and 8, 20 and 8 in the league if given the opportunity. But is your team better for it in doing so? And that's the question I think, like you and a lot of people are asking out there about what his future may be. But yes, extremely skilled was something I saw in that. In fact, it was that game where the overtime game, if you remember correctly from the earlier in the summer league, I was at live and I saw him, with an absolute showcase of his skills on that evening. But is there anyone else out there in this collage of talent? Some of it may not be able to be suitable for other teams. Some of it seems to be just biding their time in one way or the other. Some of it is just like the island of misfit toys. Some of it as far as just salary cap filler that was sent over here. I want to hear your thoughts. If there is anyone else out there on this team that you're going to be keeping an eye on this season.
Yes. I'm like everybody out there. I have my favorites. There are certain players on this team where no matter how bad or how glaring their red flags may be, I'm still going to cheer for them and I'm still going to back them up and say, no, trust me, this player is he can be good. He can be good. He just has to fix this and this and this, and then it'll be great. I love Keontae George. I think Keontae George is one of those guys who he flashes playmaking upside. He had several games last year, like 7 or more assists. And during February, late February, he just started racking up assists like crazy. Like he just decided one day, woke up, I'm just going to start passing the ball some more. But his biggest problem is, as a defender, he's pretty much a non-factor. And I think that's probably never going to be super. I don't think that's ever going to not be the case for him. But he's shown the ability to make big shots, create his own shots, share the ball with others. He just can't get his efficiency right. He is just a regular, like, low 30s 3-point shooter, like 39%, 40% field goal shooter. Part of it's shot selection. Part of it is, I think he has too much of a green light sometimes due to the Jazz not incredibly caring about the result of the game. I think Keontae George is a player that, if he can figure out his shot selection a bit more, if he can pick and choose his spots, add a bit of maturity and layering to his offensive game, he'll be able to have the game slow down for him, distribute it more to his teammates. Another guy, I think, Bryce Sensabaugh, who you mentioned earlier, Bryce Sensabaugh shot over 40% from 3 last year.
Yes.
He is a proven shooter. He's a capable shooter. The problem is he doesn't do a whole lot else, at least in the NBA. He's okay at creating his own shots. He's got a decent handle. Again, not much of a defender. You're seeing a bit of a theme here. This is why we love Walker Kessler so much. But he's a guy who, if you need somebody to hit a 3, if you need somebody to be a catch and shoot threat, absolutely a viable option, a viable weapon for the Jazz. And I think finally, this is more of a crazy pills guy, more of a nobody else really seems to believe it, but I feel like there's something there. Cody Williams, he was statistically one of the worst players in basketball last year. And I'm not going to pretend that he wasn't. I'm not going to pretend like this makes sense. But in certain parts of the year, in certain parts of certain games, you see defensive upside. You see the willingness to play hard. I watched him in the game that Trae Young hit a buzzer beater 3, buzzer beater half court shot at the end of the game to beat the Jazz. I saw Cody Williams lock up Trae Young on several possessions, and I said, okay, that's not a thing that a player necessarily does accidentally. The problem is he is not his brother playing for OKC. He is a pretty timid guy on the court. I remember being really nervous when I heard somebody asked him in the post-draft process, how do you describe your game? He says, oh, well, my brother's more of a, like, drive it at you, finish hard at the rim, but I like to take jump shots. And I remember thinking, oh, man, that's not something you want to hear from somebody if you're drafting them based on their potential upside. But I think Cody Williams, he could improve as a shooter. He shot 40% on a relatively small sample size, but in college and in high school, he was an excellent shooter, at least efficient, picked his spots well. You watch in the summer league when he's playing against lesser competition, there's a switch that flips in his mind, and all of a sudden he is like the picture of confidence and the picture of get out of the way, I'm going to score the ball. I know what I'm doing out here. That just seems it's like he's a ghost when he's in actual NBA minutes. And I feel like maybe it's a mentality thing, maybe it's coaching, whatever it is. I feel like there's something there that he can unlock and can move forward with. I don't think he'll ever be an all-star. I don't think that he's even like a starting caliber guy long term, but I do believe that he has the intangibles and he has things beyond the measurement. I've seen just flashes from him in his minutes that make you think, man, if this guy can just figure it out and lock in for an entire game, or even like an entire run on the floor from when he's on the bench to when he's back on the bench between spaces, if you can just have an entire run like that where you're like, wow, he didn't skip a beat the entire time, I think he just needs to build confidence, and I think he just needs to prove it to himself. But it's a long process, and not everybody pans out as you'd hope.
So before I get to the usual questions I'm passing on around to everyone, if everything goes right, and of course your thoughts on the Lakers, can't beat around the bush anymore. Mr. Lauri Markkanen is the best player on this team by far. It's not even a question. Since he signed the contract, since he played at an all-star level, it's kind of gone like the team, it's kind of gone in a different direction than what was originally planned as far as it's concerned. So, but Markkanen has found a new life and a new career in Utah and found himself and developed as a player, something he didn't do as much of in Chicago. He was an afterthought there in Cleveland. Somebody that maybe had some potential to do some really good things, but not considered a star by any means. But given the opportunity platform, he took advantage of it in Utah. Then again, he signed the big contract last year, but it's been mostly injured or injured right there in Utah. So with that said, we don't know how long his future is. His ski house somewhere in Salt Lake City might be up for sale at some point in time soon, because he will be one of the most marketable individuals around because of his skill set. He's able to defend. He's able to go ahead and rebound and play make, but he can also shoot from distance, something that I think a lot of teams covet for someone with his size and skill set. So with that said, the quandary begins. Do you keep him? Do the Angels decide to keep him? Do they decide to go ahead and move him? And if so, when?
It's the big question facing the Jazz this year, because frankly, not much else is going to be happening around them. But they've got an all-star 4 who can play small ball 5 and shoot the 3 and create his own shot, and he's powerful. He can defend. He can score from just about anywhere over anyone. That in that same Kevin Durant vein, where it's like, well, how can you even block his shot? Every shot is wide open. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the big question is the balance of boosting Lauri's trade value, or how long that takes to kind of peak, or is this just a guy that you're waiting for an unmissable offer? And it's kind of a tricky balance, because the more he plays for the Jazz and the more the Jazz kind of struggle, I think the less and less the phones start to ring for Utah's front office, the less offers come in, and the less, I guess, realistic or favorable offers for the Jazz start to come in. Because let's face it, no NBA team is calling the Jazz saying, hey, we kind of want Lauri Markkanen, but we really, really want to give you 5 first-round picks. Like, every NBA team has selfish reasons to be calling in and picking up a player like Markkanen. And I think from what we hear around those covering the Jazz and those close to the Jazz this last season, it's sort of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Lauri wasn't playing at 100% power last year. He wasn't entirely putting everything on the line to go drag this team to wins, and I'll let you read between the lines on what that may mean. But I think the tricky balance. It's an arithmetic where, is Lauri Markkanen valuable? Sure. Should we keep playing him? Yes, so that he can show more people, oh yeah, this is who I can be, this is who I am. And his all-star season came right off of Eurobasket, where the Jazz had just traded for him, and all of a sudden he was just dominating everybody over in Europe, and we said, who do we have here? And turns out he was an all-star. Same deal this year. He's breaking records for scoring totals, and just he dragged the Finland team all the way to 4th place, I believe, in the tournament overall. And I think that was a bit of a, hey world, look what I can do, look what I still have in my toolbox. This is what you're missing if you don't want me on your team. I think this year you may see a bit more of that Lauri on the floor. You may see a bit more of these amazing scoring outbursts where you just, as a flamethrower, and the Jazz are just feeding him relentlessly. And I think that it seems to me like the Jazz are very happy to have a guy who likes living in Utah, who likes playing for the Jazz, who loves having a home where the fans are just crazy about him, because frankly, he didn't get that in Chicago. He didn't get that in Cleveland. But people are buying up Lauri Markkanen jerseys in Utah because he's an easy fan favorite. I think the Jazz don't trade him, frankly, unless a team comes at them with an offer that's just too good to miss. I think the Jazz, obviously, they want young players. They want trade capital. They want draft capital, rather. Simply put, I think the Jazz are happy to sit on it and just ride out the storm unless somebody gives them a crazy offer. Because, frankly, at this point, what good are more draft picks for a team like the Jazz, who already have more than they can even use? I think the Jazz need some sort of unmissable offer where they're actually getting a pound of flesh from the team that's making an offer for Markkanen. Otherwise, I think they're happy to just hold on to him if the value is not where they want it to be.
You mentioned his time in Finland. Three things I got from Euroball was Luka, skinny Luka, dominating. Lauri Markkanen, I believe, was second in scoring, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was either him or Giannis second in scoring behind Luka. And then Slim Jesus on Finland as well. So that's a name a nickname that I think people need to go ahead and start looking into, as far as the 17-year-old Finnish gentleman who I think is going to come over here. Hasn't picked a school yet, but once he does, I think a lot of people are going to be interested in the nickname Slim Jesus, and I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. But before we head on out, I got to ask the odds on Lauri Markkanen. I know you talked it and went in a roundabout way as far as what you think those odds are, but let's just call it odds. I'm here in Vegas. We believe in odds. What are the odds right now on Markkanen finishing the season somewhere else?
I'll give it, as I'd put it right now, I would probably put it as 70-30 he stays in Utah. Really? That's just the feeling that I get. It feels like, with all the time that's passed and all the trade rumors that's swirled around him and all the things that are happening with Lauri, it just feels like if they were going to trade him, how much better the offer is going to get. I don't think they get rid of him unless somebody knocks their socks off.
Fair enough indeed. But before we head on out, if everything goes right for the Utah Jazz, what does that look like this season?
The number one pick. That is, as of right now, that is priority number one. That is paramount. The Jazz with the number one pick in this draft class, that's Cam Boozer, that's AJ DeBonsa, that's you have multiple players this year that could end up being MVP caliber guys if everything pans out. I think secondary this year is making sure that Ace Bailey starts gaining confidence, develops well, has a great rookie season, probably finishes top 3 in rookie of the year, I'd say would be a success. And then But I think biggest success, lose a lot of basketball games, give your young guys a lot of minutes, get the first overall pick.
I've got to tell you right now, if wherever the Utah Jazz falls in the lottery, where if Cam Boozer is still available, I know where he's going. I just think the temptation will be too hard to resist on that one.
I've heard that they did hire on Carlos Boozer as, I think, either a scout or some sort of advisory role around that. So I think it'll be hard for them to pass that up.
Exactly. Indeed. I'll just ponder on that one a little while. But truly appreciate your thoughts, Calvin, on the Utah Jazz. But before we head out, again, we talked a little bit about Skinny Luka dominating in Europe. The Lakers, as we're talking here today, getting closer to training camp, media days, and all that. There was media days for some teams already as we talk about this, but the Lakers have yet to do theirs. Your thoughts on the Lakers? What do you think they'll do this season? This was recorded after the news that Houston has lost their point guard, Fred VanVleet, for the entire season with an ACL injury, which may change things up at the top of the hierarchy in the Western Conference. Where do you see the Lakers this season?
I think that is entirely dependent on how Luka and LeBron mesh in their second year as teammates. I think the two of them, they need to find a happy medium where the both of them can be contributing, the both of them can add to the team and actually be at the peak of their individual powers without having to concede to each other all too much. I think Luka has to continue his revenge tour, keep sticking it to Dallas that gave up on one of the best players in basketball for no good reason. And I think what's really, really critical is seeing what you've got in DeAndre Ayton. Is that guy just finished playing basketball? Does that guy care about basketball? Can you revive something in him that you saw back when the Suns were in the finals? But I think the Lakers, best case scenario, everything's working out really well. Teams meshing, Ayton is revived, and the others are all contributing and playing at their best. Teams just meshing. I think the Lakers could be a top 1 or 2 team in the West. More realistically, I see them being maybe 4 or 5 in the regular season, having lots to work on. But of course, once it comes to playoffs, they've got 2 of the best players in basketball. Anything could happen. And I think they're happy to just reach the playoffs and let fate decide.
And on that note, actually, this is one of the longer conversations I've had. And it's funny because people say going in, Utah, just like straight up, 10 minutes, you're done. No, much to discuss in Salt Lake City. And I am forever thankful for it. I'm hopeful, Calvin, that we will have conversations again during the season. If that's okay with you, I would love to have them. But before we head on out, it's the cheap plug time, Calvin. Let us know, get us up to speed on where to follow you and follow your work right there for you at Fansided, SB Nation, or wherever else you want to go ahead and pitch. The floor is now yours.
Yeah, never underestimate my word count. I can go when you're talking about a topic that I like. And with that, SLC Dunk, I'm posting there regularly. I'm going to be publishing around 3 articles a week for them. If you like sports articles that are actually interesting and not just mindless drool about what you're seeing and what's happening out there, you want to see something that's actually fun to read, that's where you should go. Lawless Republic on Fansided, I'm covering college football, college basketball, specifically around BYU, who should be pretty fun to watch for any basketball fans this year. That's mainly my projects right now, and you won't regret following that. You won't regret checking that out.
Absolutely, indeed. So please go ahead and do you have any social media handles that you want them to follow?
Yes, on Twitter, on X, at sharkwaffles _. That's my Twitter handle.
I like it. I like it. Yes. Not only does he,
there you go.
Exactly. Not only does he live in an awesome awesome area of the world. He's got the pretty badass handle there as well, right there on Twitter. So yes,
What more could you
absolutely.
want?
Exactly. What more could you want indeed? Well, Calvin, it's been great having you on. I look forward, again, with your permission, to revisit our conversation during this season. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
I think we covered it pretty well. Appreciate you reaching out. Always happy to talk.
Absolutely. Sounds good indeed. Once again, it's Calvin Barrett. And Calvin, sayonara, my friend. Truly appreciate you joining us right here on the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.